para hadirin dan juga tamu kita malam ini, Profesor Anna Gate. Saya sudah boleh mulai ya, Yesi?
Iya, sebentar Pak, sebentar.
Kamu bisa bilang mulai.
Saya harus lihat dulu di YouTube-nya.
Ya, topik mungkin bisa lihat di YouTube.
Oke, siap Pak. Bisa dimulai.
Ya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du. Selamat sore di Indonesia. Selamat pagi di Amerika. Selamat pagi untuk Profesor Anna Gate. Terima kasih untuk sedia bergabung dengan kita di Pusat Pengajian Islam. Ini pengajian series yang ke-12, Pusat Pengajian Islam Universitas Nasional, di mana ini biasanya kita adakan kajian bulanan. Saya Fahrudin Mangunjaya, Ketua Pusat Pengajian Islam, senang sekali menjadi host untuk acara penting ini, untuk acara diskusi buku yang tidak panjang waktu kita, hanya 30 menit ini kita diberikan kesempatan oleh Prof. Anna, tetapi mudah-mudahan ini sangat berarti waktu ini. Kita akan mendiskusikan sebuah buku penting tentang Islamic Environmentalism. Ya, ini bukunya. Ya, bukunya ini covernya sangat menarik. Cover lebah, saya ingat hadis Nabi. Kalau seorang Muslim yang baik, kalau dia hinggap di pohon, ya di pohon lapuk pun tidak akan patah. Kemudian dia hanya menghisap bunga dan mengambil madu bunga dan mengeluarkan madu. Ini filosofi lebah. Inilah seorang mukmin yang baik. Kalau dia hinggap di ranting batang, dia tidak merusak batang itu. Kalau dia menghisap madu, dia mengeluarkan madu lagi. Jadi ini filosofi Muslim yang sangat baik dan buku itu mudah-mudahan isinya seperti itu. Saya ingin mohon izin untuk bisa introduce Anna Gate dalam forum ini. Ini kita full dalam bahasa Indonesia. Kita minta Anna nanti bisa berbahasa Indonesia karena beliau sudah sangat fasih berbahasa Indonesia. Saya perkenalkan Profesor Anna Gate is PILAS Distinguished Achievement Professor of Environmental Studies. PILAS Distinguished Achievement Professor of Environmental Studies. Saya kira ini profesor yang dihormati di University of Wisconsin dan beliau adalah Achievement Professor, salah satu yang mendapatkan Achievement Professor dengan gelar PILAS Distinguished Achievement Professor. Beliau juga adalah Associate Dean for Research and Education di Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies. Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies ini, kalau Anda tahu, adalah mengambil nama dari Senator Nelson yang membuat Hari Bumi, Earth Day, 22 April yang setiap tahun kita peringati, dan itu dicetuskan di Wisconsin di Amerika. She is also chair undergraduate committee for environmental studies, major and affiliated certificate program at University of Wisconsin Madison, which oversees curriculum for well over 500 student degrees at UW Madison, and she teaches courses on environmental humanities, Islamic studies, and the academic study of religion and ethics in the religious studies program in University of Wisconsin-Madison. Anna, thank you for your coming. Ini bahasa Indonesia saya lupa. Jadi terima kasih Anna untuk kedatangannya dan mohon maaf kita bisa menjadi host Anda, dan kami sangat terhormat Anda bisa bergabung bersama kami di Universitas Nasional. Ana, silakan berbicara mungkin dengan pertanyaan-pertanyaan saya yang saya moderatori ini. Pertanyaannya adalah mengenai buku itu. Pertama, apa sih buku ini berbicara tentang apa sebenarnya?
Pada pertama saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih sebesar-besarnya atas perkenalan ini dan kesempatan ini yang luar biasa untuk berbicara dengan orang di Indonesia mengenai buku ini yang memang banyak riwayat cerita-cerita dari Indonesia, dari pengalaman saya waktu saya di Indonesia. Terima kasih ya, saya pernah mengunjungi kampus UNAS di Jakarta. So I want to say hello to all of my friends there and welcome you to Wisconsin. Sebenarnya tempat di sini, di apartemen sini, dekat sekali dengan rumah Aldo Leopold. Mungkin ada orang yang sudah membaca bukunya yang cukup terkenal, ya, Sand County Almanac dan juga John Muir. Berasal dari sini, dari Wisconsin. Sebelum dia pindah ke tempat asal saya di California, ya, salam kepada yang di California. And as Bapak Fakhruddin Mangunjaya mentioned, ya, Gaylord Nelson juga berasal dari sini yang menciptakan ide untuk Earth Day. So, saya sudah drop in the chat beberapa link mengenai the Nelson Institute dan studi lingkungan hidup di Amerika Serikat, dan nanti kalau ada pertanyaan dengan senang hati saya akan menjawabkan kalau saya bisa, dan kalau bahasa Indonesia saya bisa difahami oleh kalian semua. Mengenai buku ini, ya, saya mungkin belum ada yang sempat untuk membacanya semua, atau mungkin ada yang ada sempat untuk melihatnya juga. Hanya 1 tahun yang lalu itu diterbitkan, itu dikeluarkan dari Columbia University Press. Ini ada kopi 1 juga. Dan pada pertama mungkin kita bisa lihat sedikit dari cover saja, ya. Cover saja, as Pak Fakhruddin was saying a moment ago, ada informasi mengenai buku ini, ya. Pertamanya judul pakai huruf S di sini, ada plural bahasa Inggris, ya. Dan ini karena tidak ada salah satu ide utama yang bisa dinamakan Muslim Environmentalism, ya. Tidak ada satu jenis, tidak ada satu gaya menjadi orang yang ramah lingkungan hidup. Ada banyak, ya. Seperti ada banyak orang yang beragama Islam juga. Seperti ada banyak mungkin tempat lingkungan hidup juga di dunia kita. Jadi diversity dalam biodiversity dan diversity dalam environmentalism, dari respons lingkungan hidup itu ada salah satu ide yang sangat penting di dalam buku ini. Kedua, kalau kita lihat ini gambarnya dilukiskan oleh salah satu orang yang beragama Islam di India, di Kerala, India. Itu memang adalah kaligrafi dari Al-Quran, Al-Karim. Ya, itu sebenarnya ada 2 ayat dari kitab suci Al-Quran dari surat An-Nahl. Ya, itu ayat 68, 69. Wa auha rabbuka ila nahl, ya. Dan itu gambar tersebut memang membahas, ya, salah satu ide yang sentral, mungkin klaim dalam buku ini, yaitu bahwa dari dari pemandangan agama Islam, dikotomi yang sering kita membicarakan dalam environmental humanities atau environmental studies dalam bahasa Inggris, yaitu dikotomi man dan nature, ya, manusia dan sifat, ya, dan alami itu. Memang itu mungkin lebih baik dibicarakan dari perspektif Islami sebagai yang maha pencipta dan penciptaan semua. Jadi teologi mengenai stewardship, yaitu khalifah, memang penting sekali. Tapi waktu saya membicarakan mengenai ramah lingkungan hidup dengan orang baik di Indonesia maupun di mana saja, yang saya lihat adalah kepentingannya adalah relationship mengenai tentang Allah dan nature semuanya, termasuk manusia juga. Nah, tetapi buku ini tidak mengenai salah satu ajaran. Sebenarnya saya bukan orang teologis, ya. Ini adalah cara untuk berpikir sedikit, insya Allah, kalau bermanfaat. Memang bagaimana kita bisa menyatukan, bring together berbagai aspek mengenai masyarakat, sejarah, pikiran, dan lain sebagainya, orang Islam dan lingkungan hidup. Jadi, buku ini mulai dengan diskusi mengenai lembaga lingkungan, LSM atau NGO, dan bagaimana organisasi itu, lembaga-lembaga itu reach out kepada orang Islam, dari segi Islam dan non-Islamic juga secara sekular. Dan buku ini semua diaturkan seperti itu kursus studi Islam di Amerika Serikat. Jadi ada beberapa aspek Al-Quran, fiqh, dan lain sebagainya dalam buku ini. Jadi bukan buku mengenai teologi saja. Di buku itu, saya sebagai author berriwayat, berkisah, dan kebanyakan kisah itu mengenai Indonesia dan pengalaman saya di Indonesia juga. Saya cukup banyak menghabiskan waktu di Indonesia. Misalnya saya mengajar agama dan ekologi di UGM, Universitas Gadjah Mada di Yogyakarta. Jadi buku ini dimulai dengan cerita tentang itu, tentang Gunung Merapi di Jawa itu, dan ada juga cerita yang kembali ke masa saya tinggal di Kamboja yang lalu, di dekat Sungai Mekong. Tapi cerita dari Asia dimaksudkan untuk mendukung pandangan mengenai Islam di seluruh dunia. Jadi mencontohi diversity di Indonesia saja, itu salah satu isyarat untuk diversity agama Islam di duniawi itu. Dalam waktu yang tersisa, saya ingin menekankan salah satu konsep dari buku ini, dan insya Allah sangat cukup menarik untuk diskusi ini, yaitu bahwa buku ini merupakan salah satu proyek penerjemahan. Ya, memang penerjemahan, terjemah dari bahasa Indonesia misalnya kepada bahasa Inggris, tapi juga penerjemahan dari konsep dari agama Islam dan studi Islam kepada studi environmental studies, lingkungan hidup di Amerika Serikat, di dalam bahasa Inggris, bahasa-bahasa Eropa. saya lihat bahwa ada bedaan antara approach modern environmentalist di sini di Indonesia, di seluruh dunia, dan juga kalau dari segi historis juga ada bedaan dari asumsi Eropa dan asumsi Islami naturally. Misalnya, memang ada banyak ajaran tentang khilafah dalam ekologi Islam. Ini berasal dari Al-Quran dan itu memang ditegaskan juga oleh orang para ahli lingkungan hidup yang di dunia Islam. Tetapi waktu saya di Indonesia, misalnya, saya lihat salah satu suasana yang berbeda juga. Waktu saya di sana, saya mendengarkan banyak orang yang punya ide mengenai rahmah, mengenai ampunan. Dari dalam bahasa Inggris mungkin we could translate it as like care for the environment or love for the environment. Nah, itu merupakan salah satu ide yang tidak ditegaskan dalam dialog-dialog mengenai agama dan ekologi, baik di Amerika Serikat maupun di tempat lain. Jadi, saya dalam buku ini ingin menegaskan ide-ide dan konsep-konsep dari Islam seperti itu, ramah atau rahmah Allah yang dikaruniakan oleh karena kita mencintai lingkungan hidup. Oleh karena kita bisa lihat bagaimana bisa menerjemahkan konsep-konsep dari agama Islam untuk the dominant paradigm of seperti yang dari Aldo Leopold dan lain-lain di Amerika Serikat, dan kita bisa lebih understand Islamic perspectives for environmental studies in North America too. So really itu adalah proyek pertama yang dasar, yang paling penting dari buku ini, insya Allah. Nah, terima kasih atas perhatiannya. I'm happy to answer questions about anything about studying environmental studies in the United States, about this book, which draws a lot from both anthropological study as well as Quranic study and textual study. I did also once write a book about the Quran as well, and the book in fact ends with a story from the Quran about Nabi Sulaiman dan menunjukkan kebaikan kepada semut kecil di dalam surat An-Naml. Okay, so thank you very much, and siap untuk pertanyaan.
Terima kasih Ana. Saya minta mereka membuat pertanyaan melalui chat room, tetapi masih belum ada, masih ada waktu. Saya ingin bertanya kepada Ana, bagaimana pandangan Ana mengenai Islamic environmentalism in the Muslim world pada umumnya, walaupun tadi sudah diceritakan. Pada umumnya bagaimana pandangan Ana Gate di dalam hal ini?
Itu baik sekali. Maksudnya pemandangan?
Ya, pendapat bagaimana?
Semacam analisis gitu?
Ya, seperti apa yang sudah dilihat? Apakah ini mengikuti saja dengan movement di Barat atau ada sesuatu yang lain?
Oke, begini. Seperti saya menyatakan pada awalnya, ada banyak jenis. Dan itu menurut saya itu sangat penting untuk menegaskan. Oleh karena di dalam bahasa Inggris ada banyak yang dinamakan essentialism. Essentialism, tahu ya, itu kalau kita pikir hanya ada satu pikiran, satu approach, satu perspektif, ya, itu bisa bagus juga, ya, itu jelas sekali posisi kita kalau ada essentialism, ya. Tapi yang saya lihat mengenai environmentalism itu bahwa kalau environmentalism ada definisi sebagai commitment kepada lingkungan hidup. That's how I call it in my book. I just say environmentalism is committing to the environment in some way, right? It's sangat luas, very open, ya. Jadi kita harus mendengarkan dengan teliti suara-suara orang yang berbeda sekali mengenai lingkungan hidup dan mengenai Islam juga. So yang saya lihat di Amerika Serikat dalam diskusi termasuk perspektif Islam, ada perspektif environmental justice misalnya, bisa beda dari konservasi. Bisa beda juga dari macam-macam jenis-jenis environmentalism. Jadi itu menurut saya bermanfaat kalau ada bukan sistem tetapi ada mapping untuk environmentalism, just like we have for understanding different types of environment. Right? Biotic environments, atmospheric environments, oceanic environments, so that we can have a dialogue that is rich and that is also grounded, is attached to our own realities. And I see that happening throughout the whole world where Muslim lives. If you're talking about 2 billion people, that's a lot. And Muslims are facing environmental crises all over the world that are varied and intense, and all from a religious perspective return back to a Quranic grounding, no matter how that's understood. So the answer, Pat, is to seek an approach that acknowledges diversity and is inclusive, just like we strive to do also in our environmental studies. Ya, maaf, Bahasa Inggris. Too hard to say in Bahasa Inggris.
Terima kasih, Ana. Ada pertanyaan di sini, ada pertanyaan dari Jum'at Kajian. Ada banyak tema di dalam Islam dan lingkungan hidup. Bagaimana Ibu Ana menceritakan Muslim environmentalism di dalam ekoteologi, ya, bagaimana perbedaan tema-tema tersebut berpengaruh terhadap orientasi isu agama dan lingkungan di dalam Islam. Saya kira ini komentar. Ada pertanyaan lagi, bagaimana cara agar umat Islam dapat lebih mengimplementasikan nilai-nilai Islam secara nyata dalam membantu menyelamatkan lingkungan hidup dan keanekaragaman hayati? Dari pengamatan Anda.
Dari perspektif buku ini, ada beberapa approach orang yang punya komitmen ini, mereka melalui untuk memperkuatkan motivasi dan aktivisme mengenai environment. Itu adalah sebabnya buku ini mulai dengan pembicaraan LSM. Yang saya lihat yang explicit, ya, yang dikatakan untuk memotivasikan aktivisme untuk lingkungan hidup, banyak kali menurut LSM itu seperti WWF, seperti ada World Bank juga, and various LSM NGOs that are many that I hear of in North America and in the UK and in Europe as well. So that's the obvious approach, yeah, that people take. But I also see ways in which the environment is a part of all of our lives, all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. So the emphasis on increasing awareness, consciousness, teaching, going into the masjid and having khutbah, you know, about lingkungan hidup is good. And I document that in the book. I also see other ways that are more subtle, less, have less vocabulary for them, less recognition, that are also happening, that relate also to struggles for justice, as well as the ways in which people practice Islam in a day-to-day kind of a way, like even through ritual practice. And I think that a language and a vocabulary for that could bring forward more the richness of the varied resources that are grounded in faith and tradition for our shared challenges for the future.
Thank you, Ana.
Bahasa Inggris lagi, Pak.
Sampai masih ada waktu ya kan?
Ya.
Ada
Ya, masih
waktu,
masih.
masih ada waktu sedikit. Banyak pertanyaan tapi saya hanya menseleksi sedikit saja.
Ya, saya lihat. Lagi grow up.
Nah, ini banyak bertanya mengenai hal-hal yang ada di buku. Sebaiknya dilihat, beli bukunya. Saya kira ini salah satunya. Ana, menurut Paulo Pierre ada 3 level kesadaran manusia, yaitu kesadaran magis, naib, dan kritis. Tetapi saya melihat hubungan kebanyakan muslim, malah kebanyakan manusia di Indonesia kaitannya dengan lingkungan masih ada di level kesadaran magis, yaitu bencana alam seperti banjir, longsor, dan lain-lain itu adalah karena manusia berdosa dan masih bermaksiat. Karena itu Tuhan memberikan bencana. Tentu ini sangat bisa, tentu itu bisa jadi satu perspektif, tapi mereka belum sampai pada kesadaran naib, belum menyadari bahwa dari bencana alam tersebut sebenarnya disebabkan oleh tangan manusia yang mengeksploitasi alam. Apa pendapat Ibu Ana mengenai hal tersebut berkaitan dengan Islam dan lingkungan? Panjang pertanyaannya.
Panjang.
Ya.
Itu. Itu ya, mungkin sudah ada jawaban juga ya di dalamnya ya. Jadi pertanyaannya adalah mengenai perspektif konstruktif dan kritis, begitu?
Ya.
Mungkin ya. Ya, dan apa pandangan saya mengenai bagaimana orang Indonesia bisa menjadi lebih kritis daripada masyarakat mereka
sangat naif, ada yang menganggap naif dan ada yang menganggap magic ya, magis. Dia bilang dengan adanya banjir ya, padahal itu atas perbuatan manusia, tetapi mereka tidak melihat itu atas sebab manusia. Itu adalah hukuman dari Tuhan. Padahal manusia penyebabnya. Bagaimana Anda melihat?
Is the question, how do people attribute the cause of environmental crisis? Like, do they see it as that they themselves have caused it, or do they consider it to be something that has been decreed by Allah so they don't have responsibility? Is that the question?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I'm just going to speak in English because it's subtle, right? And I want to be clear.
Problem. Go ahead.
I didn't write about that much in the book. Because In this book, I chose to emphasize what I heard people speaking about and writing about as well. Like if you read the writings, Yasayan Fek by Yusuf Qaradawi in Arabic, for example, which is the focus on the horizon, the end, the event in the future, the destructive event, right? Which would be Hari Qiyamah in a Quranic sense, but may also be a destruction that is experienced, like Banjir, earthquake, or Gunung Merapi meletus, right? That's how I start the book, and I chose to talk about that in the sense of a consequential relation. How I heard Kiai, especially in West Java, talking about the responsibility that human beings have with a perspective that the end of the world means a heightened commitment to the earth, because that judgment on Judgment Day will come for actions in the present. So that's kind of how I talked about stuff like that. However, the question particularly has come up in Indonesian context around the catastrophic flooding in Aceh, for example, how that environmental event was viewed in terms of being connected to human response, human potential, and also as a divine response to human action. And there, I think that a really sensitive fieldwork-based perspective is best. I don't think people are naive, actually. And I think that we need to do carefully grounded anthropological work before making any claims about how Islamic beliefs dictate responses to such cataclysms that affect human lives on a large scale. I can say that if the question is about corruption, inattention to impending environmental disaster, not taking responsibility for the care of others in our community, as well as for the community of creatures, makhluk, across the world, that's not just a Muslim issue. As I see that as a human issue. And in fact, I see teachings in the Quran about that, which constantly is talking and reminding and warning human beings about their own tendency to be forgetful, complacent, lazy, irresponsible. It's a constant wake-up call. So, so I see it as a human issue, and one for which the Quran actually can speak to humanity, whether or not you're Muslim.
Yeah, this is related to another question here. Ibu Najia from CRTS now, she is in University of Florida. My question, you said in the books that most Muslim focus in the idea on the idea of khilafah, while it is not the focus on the Quran. There are more ayat in which is talking about justice and khilafah. Can you explain more about this?
Ya, terima kasih Ibu. Itu saja. Kalau if you count them, kalau dihitung, there is a lot of mention of many concepts. The question is, what do we call environmental? The two verses for Khalifa or Khilafa in the Quran that usually we see in discussions are actually, they are only two mentions out of many of that concept in the Quran as well. So that's why that's why I hope that this book, it looks like Ibu has read it. Thank you. That's why I hope that this book, as a modest beginning, can begin a dialogue about how are we going to do this mapping of a modern idea of environment onto the Quran, or onto people's lives outside of the more narrow context of NGOs, development, state systems and education. So, so in a sense, it's a question for tafsir. And I'm not a mufassira, so I don't know. I just counted the verses. That's all. But on the other hand, that really gets to the heart of the book, right? Which is, even though it's a crazy exercise, right? It's crazy for me. Who am I, right, to say that I can speak about such a big subject? Yeah, but I think that just to start to have this dialogue, to say, okay, what are we going to call the environment? What are we going to call these relationships and these experiences and these biotic and abiotic phenomenon is really important if we're going to be sensible moving forward as an Islamic and a global community.
Ya, tadi ada yang menanyakan, minta dijelaskan kembali ya mengenai gagasan tentang care and love for nature yang kurang terungkap di kalangan orang Indonesia.
Oh yeah. So again, with humbleness, I'm not an authority in this area. I just wrote down what I heard and what I studied. But maybe this answers the question. The notion of care and love for environment that I brought up in my beginning remarks, actually I see coming more from hadith, from a textual perspective, and like the Kiai in Indonesia would cite hadith for that. Sometimes it was like they were testing me, like, do I really know my hadith? The University of Chicago do its job? Yeah. Yeah, but in Quran, that concept is there, certainly. That's why I tell the story, from Qisas Anbiya, from the Quran about Nabi Sulaiman as the ending part of the book. That's a choice that I make to pull that forward. But yeah, there are so many themes in Quran, including what I just said, the theme of Judgment Day, right? Which we can definitely see as being environmental, right? So it's a question then of, I think, not so much even a challenge to rethink Islam. A lot of smart people have thought a lot about Islam, it's there, but rather to rethink environment. And that is an area where I feel I have expertise. I'm a professor of environmental studies, right? I teach students who come to me from Wisconsin and all over the world, and maybe all they've read is Aldo Leopold, and I want to show them there's more to environment, there's more to people thinking about environment. So that's really where my work is translating environment in a fuller kind of a sense, rather than translating Islam or Quran. There's people much better at that than I am.
Thank you, Anna. We still have time, Yesi? There's one question about, could you explain the position of Muslim environmentalism today in academia?
Maaf, ada pertanyaan dari saya. Di mana? Tapi mereka kan memang berbeda dari yang di Indonesia.
Di akademik saja, dunia akademik, or for the world. Ya.
Akademik saja. Ya. Oke. Mungkin yang sebaik-baiknya saya menjawab dari perspektif Amerika Serikat. Maaf kalau membosankan. Ya. Yang saya lihat ada banyak ide-ide, konsep-konsep di dalam baik dalam environmental studies maupun dalam environmental humanities. Salah satu aspek of the wider interdisciplinary study, that is very influenced naturally by European thought. by, it cannot, it's inevitable that it is going to be related to Christian thinking, to colonial thinking. So what I see is to have Islamic perspectives, Islamic voices, and even material from the Muslim world included, requires this project of translation. And in America, it's part of a wider discussion about how we are going to, we Americans, me, not you, are going to think about how we approach this question of diversity, not by adding on a couple of examples, but by really thinking deeply about a paradigm shift that reverses the colonial process and the academic colonial process. So when people ask me kind of the same question, like, why should we pay attention? Why should we care? You know, I'm not Muslim, they say. I'm not Muslim. Why Muslim environmentalism? Why does this matter to me? Yeah, I say it matters because it's part of a project of creating a space that is real for seeing the humanity and the perspectives of the world. And that is essential for any kind of real environmental understanding. So that means that the answer is a little bit depressing, maybe. that there's not much of a space yet. Yeah, my challenge is to create that space, not to speak for Muslims. I can only speak for myself, really. I can report what Muslims say, but to begin a real dialogue that isn't just bringing in something that is an example that isn't taken with real depth. Yeah. In Indonesia, yeah, you know, Muslim environmentalism is what Pa Fakhruddin is the global expert in. We have other people on this call who are Nana Firman. I don't know if Itin Anwar's here. We have Orang Indonesia who work globally, who are really leaders in this area from Indonesia. And I would have to defer to them for the best answer.
Nana is here as well.
I know. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. There's so many interesting questions as well. Pak Ishaktan bertanya ini mengenai amalan hidup itu lebih Islami, termasuk dalam melakukan lingkungan di negara Eropa seperti di Swedia berbanding di Indonesia yang penduduknya mayoritas Muslim. Tapi dalam praktisnya terlihat lebih baik di negara-negara Eropa. Mereka lebih bersih, seperti mengamalkan apa yang diajarkan oleh Islam. Bagaimana Ana melihat ini? Mungkin juga di Amerika ya.
Yeah, I don't can we turn on bahasa Inggris? I understand in Indonesian, I don't know how to begin to answer that. Can you possibly translate the question for me?
Yeah, the question is we see that a lot of Indonesians not practicing what the teaching was. For example, the cleanliness, and many Muslim in Indonesia doesn't care about the so many garbage. They are not so clean. But it is different with the practice that European do, such as in Swedia. They are very clean. They are care with the environment. This is the perspective. Why that's kind of practice happen in Indonesia? What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. The answer is even in English, I don't know. I can say something about that from my time in Indonesia. Not research, just anybody on this call has observations, yeah. But one thing I notice that is special about Indonesia, mungkin beda di Malaysia, mungkin beda di Singapura, yeah. But it's special about Indonesia when talking about environment, like eco pesantren, that Professor Fakhruddin Mangunjaya has written books about. Yeah, that I see the focus on this aspect of environment to be so strong in Indonesia. Kebersihan, sampah-sampah. Yeah, when we define eco-pesantren, like for the menteri-menteri of the pemerintah, you know, one of the criteria, one of the things that is on the list is to have clean and tidy grounds, you know, like it's the, you know, like it's a competition to have the village that is, you know, or the city that is the cleanest. Yeah. And so I have found that to be helpful to me as I try to widen the perspective of what is the environment, right? You know, to realize that that's often going to be the point of entrance. You know, if I go to visit an eco-pesantren, as I have done with Fakhruddin in the past, you know, people will want to show me, a foreigner, a visitor, the beautiful grounds, and indeed they're beautiful, right? You know, the clean and tidy setting, the way in which there are, you know, the water cycle is represented in water resource management, in the madrasa, in the pesantren, and then that helps me in this comparative way, like your question, to begin to think, okay, starting from this, how can I translate other ideas about environmentalism to have a dialogue? How can we talk about climate change? How can we talk about environmental justice and the way, in fact, there may be agricultural and other outreach to the masyarakat? How can we talk about all kinds of issues, including, you know, wildlife management, you know, in that kind of a context, or forest management? So I think the question is really important, and is important also for self-reflection on how we think about environment. I'm sorry for your actual question. I don't know. No answer.
Thank you, Anna. Actually, so many questions here. I would like to let Pak Farid, you raising your hand. Can you talk and open your mic, please? Farid Ridwanuddin is also a student from Pak Zainal from ICAS. Okay. From
Okay.
for personal studies. Yes, Farid.
Thank you, Pak Fakhruddin. I'm your student. It was in ICAS, and I have a good question maybe for Ibu Ana. So, religious approach was used, in long time ago to solve ecological crisis in the world. But if we read the evidence or the fact of ecological crisis in the world or in Indonesia, so increasing, from year to year. So for me, this is maybe we have a failure, we have failure to solve ecological crisis because the number of crises is increasing. So my question is, what kind of religious approach can we use in the future to solve ecological problem? Maybe this is my question, Pak Fakhruddin. I hope Ibu Ana can understand my question.
Thank you, Farid. Thank you, Farid. Please, Anna. This is
terima kasih atas pertanyaannya. Ya, sangat jelas, tapi penjawabannya kurang jelas juga. Ya, itu memang adalah salah satu pertanyaan. Ada beberapa pertanyaan seperti itu yang tadi. Itu pertanyaan normatif, konstruktif, untuk aktivisme, untuk teologi, and that story isn't written yet. You know, I with greatest respect, I can only turn that question back to you, and say, well, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do as Jum'at Islam? You know, what I try to do now to try to answer the question sincerely is at least begin the process of translation, of sorting out, of naming, of widening the field of what we call environment, what we call environmental studies, maybe what we call Islam, I don't know, depends on who I'm talking to, yeah. But widen that so that there can be a real conversation, because, you know, pertanyaan itu adalah, you know, pertanyaan yang paling penting untuk melestarikan lingkungan hidup and for the survival of all of us into the future. So thank you for that. I look forward to working with you. I can take one more question, Pat, if there's still more time, and then I think probably I'll need to say goodbye, get my daughter to school.
Okay. I think this is Nana is asking. Yeah? In my observation, especially for Indonesia, we need to start our connection with the environment from planting, because most Indonesians love plant and love to be around trees. Once we plant, automatically we will take care of everything else, sampah, binatang-binatang, dan lain-lain, insya Allah. In other countries, it might start from saving the water, because their religion have scary the water, have the water scarcity.
Thank you. I mean, have, yeah. So, kalau ada proyek pokok dan in a field, and literally a lapangan, and a place for activism, that's where the reality of environmentalism occurs. Yeah. And if in Indonesia, you know, people like pohon-pohon, alhamdulillah, you know, apalagi di Indonesia, you know, maybe some people would say the greatest environmental problem is deforestation and the burning of rainforests. Yeah, of course, now, you know, the fires are everywhere. The fires are in our home, aren't they, Ibu Nana, in California? The fires are in Australia. The fires are in Brazil. But yeah, absolutely. I think that having the grounding and the connection, this gets back to the previous question too, and it's a good conclusion actually for this discussion. I think that activism and having a praxis, having an actual focus is the way to begin for certainly for getting things done, but for theory as well. To have a theory and an understanding that's grounded in the real world and real, responsible, ethical, religious, if you will, action, you know, action that inshallah will be rewarded by, you know, Allah will be, is in my personal view, also a very, very good place to start.
Nana, the latest, can I ask you what religious and social foundation, the most important thing you find in Indonesia?
Yeah.
What is the most important thing?
Terus terang, saya tidak menulis judul itu. Secara kuat saya ingin bahwa ada Muslim environmentalisms, dan saya sangat ingin adalah huruf kecil itu S. Yeah. Right? Tapi religious and social foundations, nah, bukan saya ingin ada, I wanted there to be this picture, and I reached out to the calligrapher in India so that we would not have just, you know, just a masjid on the cover. Yeah, but religious and social foundations was Columbia University Press. They wanted it to be a lot longer. Oh, they had even in English, like I was like, what is this? They got religious and social and like historical and political and like, you know, all these names, maybe because they wanted the keywords, yeah, for when people search, I don't know.
The need like, the market.
Oh, market. Also, thank you for asking, you know, I don't know if I would say I was coming up with foundations, you know, that makes it sound like, I have, the basis, for all of this, like the foundation on which we all start. I don't think so. What I was trying to do was just to take a wide perspective and at least connect environment to each one of these aspects in Islamic studies, including tasawwuf, right? Including, ibadah, including LSM, including all this stuff, and at least put it together in one place so we can start to talk. So atas pembicaraan, atas the beginning of diskusi ini, saya mengucapkan terima kasih sebesar-besarnya. Thank you for this honor and opportunity.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih Ana, terima kasih sebuah dialog yang sangat baik malam ini, dan we appreciate for Ana for presenting for this evening in Indonesia, morning in America, Jum'at Mubarak insyaallah. And terima kasih kepada teman-teman yang hadir. Ini di acara ke-12 Pusat Pengajian Islam. Insya Allah nanti kita akan adakan seri-seri yang lain yang menarik, yang memberikan pengetahuan kepada kita. Terima kasih. We appreciate for the coming. Ana, Professor Anna Gates, have a good health in this very stressful condition. We are now fully online for the student, right? So also in UNAS. Jadi sudah 8 bulan kita tutup kuliah, tapi dengan online ini kita bisa lebih menambah pengetahuan dan wawasan untuk berbagi mengenai pandangan dunia kita, berbagi mengenai bagaimana kita memelihara alam kita sebagai sebuah karunia. Demikian, billahi taufik wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Foto grup sudah? Tolong.
Oh ya, oke, baik. Teman-teman sekalian bisa mohon untuk membuka videonya terlebih dahulu. Mungkin kita perlu 2 detik untuk. Oh, Ibu Ana sudah keburu pulang.
Ada Ana masih bertahan. Oke.
Bisa videonya dihidupkan terlebih dahulu? Oke.
Ya, videonya hidupkan biar ada
Oke.
wajahnya, ya.
Oke, 1, 2, 3.
Ya. Oke, ada yang dari Amerika juga ya. Dari Sulawesi ada. Pak Jainal dari Jogja hadir. Terima kasih Pak Jainal. Saya melihat teman-teman banyak yang juga belajar mengenai studi Islam.